Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The sun burned above the dry hills. The wind blew hot dust across the cracked land. The sky was empty, and the ground was worse, dry, sharp, and endless. Raya kept walking. Her legs shook. Her back hurt. Her feet were torn and bleeding. She had no shoes left, only dirty cloth wrapped around her soles. Still, she walked, because there was nothing behind her, and nowhere to go ahead. Her village was gone. Burned. Her family. Dead. Her people. Scattered. Hunted. Forgotten. She had run when the fires came, with nothing but the thin robe on her body and a pouch of dried roots. That was 6 days ago. Now the roots were gone. Her lips cracked from thirst. Her body was failing. She saw something in the distance, a small hill. Maybe shelter? She used the last of her strength to reach it. Every step felt like stepping on blades. She fell once, then again, but she crawled to the top. And there, half buried under stone and brush, was a small structure, a broken roof. Smoke coming from a small pipe. Someone lived here. Raya wanted to knock, but her arms wouldn't lift. She fell to her knees, then to her side. Her vision blurred. Her chest rose once, twice, then stopped. The door creaked open. A shadow stood over her, tall figure with rough hands, faded pants, and a silent face. A human. His name was Cole. He looked down at the collapsed alien woman in front of his shelter. Her skin was pale blue. Her face was dirty, her lips dry and shaking. And in her hands, nothing, not even hope. He didn't ask questions. He picked her up gently, like holding something fragile, and carried her inside. The inside of the shelter was small, rough stone walls. One table, one bed, old tools and bags of rock stacked in corners, but it was warm, and there was water. Cole placed her on the softest place. He had his sleeping mat, and covered her with a clean cloth. Then he boiled water and crushed some herbs. He slowly gave her drops. Her body shook, but she drank. Not much, just enough to live. Hours passed. Raya's eyes opened slightly. The room spun. She saw wooden beams above her, not sky. Then she saw him, sitting at the corner, quiet, watching her. A human. She froze. Her heart raced. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't listen. He noticed, and spoke, softly. "You're safe." She stared at him. Was this a trick? Would he take her somewhere? Would he call the soldiers? She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice cracked into silence. He stood, walked over, and placed a cup near her. "Drink," he said, then stepped back. Raya waited, watched him. He didn't move closer, didn't threaten her. Finally, she took the cup with both hands and drank. Cool water touched her throat. It hurt, then it healed. She drank again and cried, silently, because it had been so long since someone gave without taking. Later, she sat up slowly. Her feet were bandaged. Her arms had small cuts cleaned and wrapped. He had done all this. A human. She looked at him. "What do you want from me?" she asked in a broken voice. He shrugged. "Nothing." She didn't believe it. She asked again. "Why help me?" He looked out the window, then said simply, "You looked like you needed it." Raya didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. And for the first time in a week, she closed her eyes and slept. Outside, the sun began to set, and inside that small rough shelter, hope began to rise. Not loudly, not with words, but with the quiet kindness of a stranger who had nothing, yet gave everything. The sun rose slow and red over the stone hills. Inside the shelter, the warmth had faded, but it was still better than the cold outside. Raya woke slowly, unsure where she was. Then she remembered. The fall, the human, the cup of water, the silence. She sat up, wincing at the pain in her feet. Bandages were clean and wrapped well. She hadn't had care like that since her people were alive. Across the room, Cole sat near a small fire pit, placing dry sticks into the flame. His face was calm, focused, quiet. He looked up when she moved. "You're awake," he said, as if it was just another morning. Raya nodded, then noticed the roof above her head. A patch of stone, wood, and metal sheets held together by rope and heavy rocks. There were holes, cracks, a small drip in one corner. This was no palace, not even a proper shelter, but it had kept her alive. She stared at him. "You gave me your only sleeping mat," she said. He shrugged. "You needed it." Raya looked down. She was used to being called a burden, a problem, an unwanted mouth. But this man hadn't said a word like that. She looked around the place. The table had one leg shorter than the others. The door creaked. The walls leaned slightly, and still, it felt more like a home than anything she had touched in years. "Why do you live here?" she asked. Cole stirred the fire. Was part of a terraforming crew. "We built the outpost. Then, they left." "They left you?" He nodded. Said I was too quiet, not worth the transport seat. Raya's eyes softened. "You stayed alone?" "Been alone a long time." Silence filled the space, but it wasn't heavy. It was something else, something almost peaceful. Cole stood and grabbed a small tin box. He opened it and pulled out a handful of dried root chips. "Not much," he said, placing half in a bowl and giving it to her. "But enough." Raya took it slowly. She wanted to ask more, but didn't know how. Instead, she took one chip and chewed. It was bitter, dry, but it was food. Real food. Later, she stood and limped outside. Her feet still hurt, but the sun felt good on her face. She looked at the area around the shelter. Rocky ground, some scraggly brush, old digging tools leaning against a broken wheelbarrow. Then she turned and saw Cole on his knees near a pile of stones. He was stacking them, one by one, no words, no blueprint, no machine, just his hands. Hard work. "What are you building?" she asked. Cole wiped sweat from his forehead. "Fixing the wall. Storm cracked it last week." Raya walked closer. "Do you always fix things with stone?" "Stone stays," he said. "Metal rusts, plastic warps, but stone keeps." She bent down and picked up a rock. Heavy, rough. She looked at him, then placed it beside the others. He glanced at her. Didn't smile, didn't speak, but nodded. And that small nod meant everything. The day passed. She helped move a few stones, then rested, then helped again. Her muscles ached, but it was the first time in weeks she felt useful. That night, Cole brought out 2 cups of hot water with herbs. He placed one in front of her. They sat in silence again, fire crackling between them. Then Raya asked something she had never asked anyone before. "Can I stay one more day?" Cole didn't look up. He just replied, "As long as you need." And for the first time in her life, that answer didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a door. Opening. The days passed quietly. Raya helped where she could. She carried stones, fetched water, cleaned tools. She spoke little. Cole spoke even less. But something between them had started to settle, like dust after a long storm. Not love. Not yet. Just something safe. But safety, Raya believed, could not last. Not for someone like her. Not when she had nothing to give. So one early morning, before the sun touched the hilltop, she folded the blanket Cole had given her. She placed it on the mat, left half a cup of water beside it, then stepped outside. She looked back only once, then walked into the rising heat. Her plan was simple: find work, any work, prove she could survive on her own. 2 hours later, she reached a border town made of metal walls and solar towers. It was loud, crowded, dusty. She approached the gate. The guard, a scaled alien, looked her over with disgust. "Papers?" he asked. "I don't have any," she said. "Then get off our land." "I just want to work." "You want?" He sneered. "So does everyone else." He waved his hand, and the drone stepped forward. Raya backed away. "I'm not dangerous." "No, papers. No credits, no place." Another guard muttered, "Beggar." A merchant passing by tossed a rotten fruit at her feet. "Go home, if you even have one." Raya stood frozen, until the drones beeped louder. She turned and ran. She didn't stop until her legs gave out again. But this time, there was no stone hut nearby. No shadow watching over her, just the dry wind. She sat on the dirt and looked at her hands. They were scratched, dry, tired. She clenched her fists and whispered, "I should never have left." By the time she reached the hill again, the sky was orange. She limped up the path, heart pounding. The stone shelter came into view. Smoke rose from the chimney. A soft light glowed from the window. She stopped at the doorway. Her breath caught in her throat. Then the door opened, and Cole was standing there. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. He simply asked, "You hungry?" She nodded. He stepped aside. She walked in. He handed her a bowl of root stew. She sat on the mat again. Everything felt like it had the day she arrived, but she wasn't the same. "I tried to leave," she said quietly. Cole stirred the fire. No." She looked down. "I thought maybe I could survive, make my own place." He didn't respond. "I was wrong." Still, he said nothing. So she added, "They threw things at me." Now he looked up. She met his eyes. Her voice broke. "They didn't even see me as a person." Cole stood slowly and walked to the shelf. He pulled something down and placed it in front of her. It was a stone, flat, smooth, and marked with a strange symbol. "What is this?" she asked. "Mark of shelter," he said. "Old human tradition," she blinked. "For what?" "When someone has no place, you give them this. It means they can return. Always." Her throat tightened. He added, "I kept it in case you came back." She couldn't hold the tears anymore. That night, she didn't sleep on the mat. She sat beside Cole by the fire, and when the flames crackled low, she finally whispered, "Thank you for building something no one else would." He didn't answer. But he placed another log on the fire, and the warmth stayed a little longer. The sun burned high, wind swept across the rocky hills, and under its heavy light, Cole worked alone, his back bent, arms red with dust, hands scraped raw. He lifted one stone, then another, then placed it carefully into the rising wall. No machines, no help, just effort, stone after stone, for something bigger than just shelter. Inside the hut, Raya watched. She stood near the door, arms crossed, silent. She had woken to the sound of hammering, not loud, just steady. It didn't stop. Hour after hour. She hadn't asked him to do it. He hadn't told her why, but she knew he was building it for her. By midday, sweat poured from Cole's brow. His shirt clung to his chest. His boots were caked in mud. Raya stepped outside, walked toward him. She didn't speak. She picked up a stone, placed it beside his hand. He looked at her, then said, "You don't have to." "I know." He nodded once, then kept working. She stayed beside him. They didn't build fast. They built together. He showed her how to balance the rocks, how to mix dust with moisture to seal the cracks. She showed him how to spot weak points. Her people had used stone long before machines. They shared sweat, They shared silence. They shared space. When the sun dipped behind the ridge, the outline of the new room stood tall, not perfect, but solid, real, like the trust between them. They sat side by side, on a log, staring at their work. The stone walls glowed gold in the last light of day. "I never asked for this," Raya said softly. Cole nodded. "I know. But you built it anyway." He shrugged. "You deserve more than a roof barely standing." "Why?" she whispered. He looked at her, not with pity, but with quiet respect. "Because people need more than survival. They need a place to belong." Raya stared at the new wall, a real wall. For her, not to trap her, but to protect her. No one had ever done that before, not without wanting something back. That night she added more wood to the fire before he could. She poured water into his cup first. She didn't say thanks. She showed it. He noticed, but didn't speak. He just sat near the warmth, watching the flames flicker. Later she lay awake, eyes open to the ceiling. Then she stood quietly and stepped outside. The stars were clear, the wind cold, but not cruel. She looked at the half-built stone wall, ran her hand along it, rough, solid, like the man who built it, and for the first time in her life, she whispered, "Maybe this is what home feels like." The sky turned dark by noon. Heavy clouds rolled over the hills like waves of black smoke. The wind picked up, sharp, dry, warning. Raya stood outside, her hair whipping in the air, watching the storm rise from the south. She had seen storms like this before, the kind that didn't just break trees. They broke people. Inside, Cole moved quickly. He tied down tools, sealed the fire pit, secured the door with thick rope and old iron hooks. Raya stepped in behind him. Her eyes met his. "It's a bad one," she said. He nodded. "Worse than last year?" Raya looked at the new stone wall they'd built together. "It'll hold," she whispered. He paused. "You sure?" she answered. "We built it with our hands. That's better than machines." The wind screamed. Then came the dust. Fine, stinging, endless. It hit the hut like claws. Raya held Lem, the child Cole had helped deliver just weeks ago, close to her chest, wrapped in cloth and blankets. Cole stood near the wall, feeling every vibration through his boots. The door rattled. The windows shook. Then, a loud crack. Part of the roof shifted. Raya gasped, but Cole was already moving, grabbing wood, jamming it against the beam, forcing it back into place. Hours passed. No sleep, no rest. Only wind, dust, shaking walls, howling dark. But the stone stayed still. Raya closed her eyes and pressed her forehead to the wall. It was cold, but strong. It had weight. It had purpose. It didn't fall, just like the one who built it. When morning finally came, the sky was pale, gray. The wind calmed. The air was heavy with silence, and outside the land looked ripped open, trees broken, old outposts flattened, debris scattered across the hills. But the stone shelter stood, leaning, dirty, but standing. Raya stepped outside. With bare feet, she turned to Cole. The sun lit the wall behind him, the one they had built together. She reached out, ran her hand across its edge, then turned and looked him in the eyes. "You could have left me that first day," she said. He didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You didn't just save my life." She touched her chest. "You gave it back to me." Cole looked at her, and this time he said it plain. "So did you." That night, they sat near the fire. Lem asleep in a small basket near the wall. Raya leaned her head on Cole's shoulder for the first time. No words, no questions, just silence. And in that silence, a storm had passed, and something stronger had stayed. 3 suns had passed since the storm. The hills were calm again. The sky was wide and blue, and the stone walls still stood, dusty, cracked in places but whole. Raya planted dry root seeds near the back wall that morning. She watered them using the slow drip jug Cole had shown her how to build. She smiled when Lem crawled through the dirt, chasing a beetle, the sound of a small life laughing, the kind of sound a home should have. Then, a shadow passed overhead. Raya looked up. A black drone hovered above their shelter. Its red lens blinked. She froze. 2 hours later, a ground patrol arrived, an armored rover, 2 officers, 1 digital warrant. Cole met them at the edge of the hill. Raya stayed inside, watching through the cracks in the wall. The taller officer, a gray-skinned enforcer, stepped forward. "We've received a report of an undocumented alien female living on private land." Cole didn't flinch. "She's not undocumented, she's alive, and this is her home." "Not according to colony records," the officer said coldly. "She has no ID, no work permit, no registration chip. She's a survivor. She's a violation." Raya stepped out slowly. She held Lem in her arms. The officers turned. Their eyes scanned her, then dropped to the child. The shorter officer muttered, "Mixed blood, human and foreign, unregistered offspring." Raya gripped Lem tighter. Cole stepped between them. "If you've come to take her, you'll have to go through me." The enforcer looked at him. "You would risk your land for her?" "I didn't build this land," Cole said. "I built this home." The lead officer frowned. "You have 24 hours, turn her in, or we come back with force." They left without another word. The dust from their rover lingered long after they vanished. Inside, Raya sat at the edge of the sleeping mat. Her voice shook. "They'll take him. They'll take me." Cole sat beside her. "They won't." Tears ran down her cheeks. "You should have told them I was just passing through, saved yourself." He looked at her. "This isn't just my place anymore." She looked up and saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just protecting her, he was choosing her. That night, he activated the old transmitter. He sent a message, coded, direct, to someone he knew from his days in the terraforming guild. A contact in the outer colony network, someone who owed him. The reply came an hour later. "It won't be easy, but I can push paperwork. I'll need proof. Work logs, photos, statements." Cole looked at Raya, then at the walls they had built. Then he smiled. They spent the next morning gathering everything. Photos of Raya working with stone, notes on Lem's growth, testimonies from neighbors who'd taken shelter during the storm. By midday, Cole sent it all. Then waited. That night, Raya didn't speak. She sat near the fire, eyes locked on Lem's soft sleeping face. Cole didn't ask her to be hopeful. He just sat beside her and placed his hand over hers, not to comfort her, but to let her know they were in this together. The next morning, a message came, short, simple. Status updated, citizenship granted, work recognized, residency approved, warning order revoked, she stays. Cole read it twice, then again, then turned to her. Raya stared at him, too scared to hope. "What does it mean?" she whispered. He handed her the screen. "You're not a ghost anymore." She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "You gave me more than a home. You gave me back my name." The papers came 1 week later, stamped, verified, legal. Raya's name, in full, a residency mark, and one line that made her hands tremble. Recognized civilian partner, Cole W. Tanner. She held the tablet close to her chest and walked slowly. Through the hut, past the stone walls they built, past the fire pit where they once shared silence, past the small sleeping nook where Lem now snored gently in the straw. She stopped at the doorway where Cole was patching the last crack in the roof. She said softly, "It's done." He turned, saw the mark in her eyes, then smiled. Not wide, not loud. Just the kind of smile you only give when you know you're home. That evening they cooked together, not root stew, not emergency rations, but a real meal. From the garden, spiced, stirred, and shared. Raya laughed when Cole burned the corner. Of the bread, he blamed the old stove. Lem clapped at every new flavor, and when the meal was done, they stepped outside. Just as the sun dipped behind the rocks, the sky turned gold, then purple, then stars blinked into view. Cole stood quietly beside her, arms crossed, gaze calm. Raya leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "This place," she said, "it has no name." Cole looked at her. "Then give it one." She paused, then whispered, "We'll call it Haven." He didn't speak. He didn't need to, because she had just done something no one ever let her do before. She had claimed something, not out of survival, but out of love. The next day, a nearby family brought over tools, soil bricks, and seeds. They had heard what happened. They had seen the storm. They had watched the patrol come and leave empty. Now they brought respect, and Raya welcomed them. Not as a beggar, not as a refugee, but as a host. They built benches, cleared space for more rooms, painted symbols on the outer walls. The symbol for peace, for shelter, for beginning again. That night, Raya stepped into the house last. She looked at the walls, at Lem asleep in his little hammock, at Cole resting with a book in his lap, boots off, eyes half closed. She whispered, "I used to think a home was made of stone. Now, I know it's made of people who stay." She didn't lock the door that night. There was no need, because nothing could take away what they had built. Not with tools, but with time. Not with money, but with care. And from that day forward, the woman who once had nowhere to go, the woman who walked until her feet bled, now walked barefoot on ground she owned, not by law, but by love. Because her home wasn't stone, it was him.